special lesson. We will be reviewing a piece of technology that had changed the way we multitask and handle tasks forever. This is a piece of technology that without it, the way we live will be extraordinarily different. That, my fellow students, is the iPad.
Oh my gosh, that technology is old. You wouldn't even believe how long ago it was.
I understand that technology advances very fast at an incredibly high rate, but without the invention of the iPad, or in any manner, modern touchscreen devices, the way we live our lives would be extravagantly different. You might not even exist without the effects the iPad had upon society and industry.
Of course we would. It wasn't like the iPad took us to Mars.
That is true, but without it, the advancement of technology might not have been as revolutionary and advanced as it was supposed to be. Now, I'm going to display a virtual iPad at hand, while I hold a physical model for us today. The iPad was first made in the year 2010 and was sold for $4.99 for a 16GB model, $5.99 for a 32GB model, and $6.99 for a 64GB model. It was released April 3rd of 2010 without cellular data in the United States of America, and the cellular data version was released in the US April 30th of 2010.
What materials was it made out of? Because in other places, other materials might be plentiful, might be scarce in others. Like this place.
It was made up of an aluminum body, glass screen, plastic for the back Apple logo, polycarbonate, which was used to manufacture touchscreens and help strengthen the glass, lithium-ion polymer for the battery, polyurethane to keep a watertight seal on the iPad, elemental silicon for the microchips, and many other metals like gold, copper, iron, and nickel to make up the rest of the microchips that consist in the iPad.
Explain some more about the complex molecules.
Okay. Well, first, I'll have to explain about how they got there and on Earth in the first place. Stars. A long time ago, in every galaxy far, far and near, the first stars formed many years after the Big Bang, are about to die. They form new chemical elements by the process of fusion. Fusion is the process of combining two atoms into one via the use of energy within the star. Hydrogen is the primary fuel for stars, and stars combine those atoms to create helium, the second element on the periodic table. However, over time, stars will run out of hydrogen. Helium will now be used to fuel the star, which creates all of the other elements on the periodic table. Fusion can create atoms from helium all the way up to iron. Iron is poison to the star. It is simply too heavy and dense to use in fusion. Once the first stars collect a great amount of iron, they begin to collapse under their own weight. Gravity wins and crushes the core of the star. Just before the star implodes, pressure builds to the point that iron combines with other elements to create even heavier primary elements. Within seconds, the star implodes, then explodes, thus to create all the vast cosmic soup we call chemistry into space. We have achieved yet another threshold of higher complexity in the universe once again.
That's amazing. How do we get those elements into our solar system?
I am about to tell you. About 4.6 billion years ago, there was a collection of hydrogen and helium and dust from past supernova explosions that clumped together in a process known as accretion, which formed larger celestial objects into stars, which prompted the formation of a protoplanetary disk filled with chemically rich elements. It gave rise to small asteroids, planetesimals, planets, and entire solar systems. The Sun took up 99.9% of the mass that was in our solar system, coming out as a hot ball of gas and radiation, while the larger gas planets like Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune took the other 99.9% of the 0.1% of the original mass of the solar system. The inner planets, including Earth and Mars, took 1/1000th of the original mass of the original materials used to make our solar system.
So, how exactly did the Earth and Mars gather these particular materials?
Through accretion, of course. What is interesting is that most of the universe consists of hydrogen and helium, and that was the case for the materials used to create our solar system. However, due to the sun gobbling up almost all the hydrogen and helium and expelling the rest out into the outer solar system via the solar wind. Most of the heavier elements, 90% of them actually, ended up on planet Earth. Through the chaotic events known as the Late Heavy Bombardment, which occurred more than 4.5 billion years ago, the planetesimals that once coexisted together now formed into 4 large rocky planets, with the Earth being the largest of them all. It was partially due to this activity, as well as comets dispensing water to the planets, and asteroids trickling geological activity in the planets, that Earth finally got geology. Earth developed a system of plates that moved and shifted with the convection currents inside the mantle and outer core that is inside the planet, with the mantle occasionally rising up from volcanoes to become lava, and the outer core creating Earth's magnetic field, which, working together, create what we know as plate tectonics. This is how the most common elements, like silicon, aluminum, and others, rise up to the crust and eventually get discovered by humans later on.
So I get how the materials got here, but how exactly did the idea of a notepad or a tablet come to be?
That was what I was going to explain next to you guys, because it is just as interesting. We now have to go back to around 3300 BCE, to ancient Mesopotamia. It was here that the first clay tablets were used to store important data on trade, literature, tracking crops, seeds, livestock, and for record keeping. This was also where one of the oldest forms of writing and language, known as cuneiform, or wedge-shaped writing, was found. Humans always have a habit of improving past technologies that were created to make lives easier for them, and this is no exception. The clay tablet was one of those inventions that revolutionized the way collective learning was developed, or knowledge and information gained by each new generation without the loss from the old one. Collective learning is the driving force of innovation, and the clay tablet became one of the first objects to display writing and soon evolved into many different shapes and sizes. One of those forms was known as the notepad. The first commercial use of a legal notepad, the yellow paper ones, was traced back in 1888 when Thomas Hawley of Holyoke, Massachusetts, stitched multiple grades of paper together into a collection of pages that resembled a modern notepad. Later on, it evolved into the legal pad in around 1900, when a local judge would question a margin be drawn on the left side, and that was the first legal notepad.
Surprising we don't use paper as much anymore.
Indeed, we have come a long way from the realm of physical writing. Now we have virtual reality to guide the future.
It seems that collective learning is now on steroids thanks to technology.
It has boosted the capabilities that humans can do. Now we can reach for the stars.
I was wondering, what would the world be like without the invention of the iPad?
Well, shortly before the iPad was invented, planet Earth was still using flip phones, Game Boys were all the rage, the Xbox 360 was just released, and smart devices weren't coined and used extensively yet. It was a world similar to the late 90s and early 2000s, where you had to rely on the pieces of technology you had to do daily tasks, which were a lot of them. It had come a long way from previous decades before it, but it was not a time where mass communication, social media, cell phone addiction, and simpler ways to do complicated tasks were around. Pop culture was molded around these new devices, now capable of doing many tasks at once, which was one of the reasons why the iPad and iPhone became wildly successful. They were supercomputers that fit inside your backpack and your pocket, and were as thin as regular panes of glass by themselves. If the iPad and iPhone were not invented at that time, it would eventually have came via another company, but wouldn't have the same impact or wouldn't have happened as so soon as it was if Apple's iPad and iPhone didn't become successful at that time, or if they were invented at all. The iPad became a very useful tool that gave rise to useful applications that benefit many aspects of home and business life, including the rise of smart devices that make life seem like a Hanna-Barbera cartoon, like the Jetsons. Without it and other mobile devices, we would not have many influencers and online celebrities that changed the world, including some famous politicians, and life would have slowly progressed on like it had back in the 90s, and collective learning would not have hit an exponential mark like it had around 2011. We might not even be on the fringes of the technology now if it wasn't for that time.
So in short term, society would be thrown back to 2006.
In a nutshell, yes. Life became simpler thanks to the iPad and the iPhone and many mobile devices that became popular with the youth. Well, that was the extended history of the iPad and its materials. Class is dismissed. You may now remove your VR headset devices. But before you do, would anyone like a physical copy of the first iPad? I think you will get a kick out of this.
This is real. Thank God for 3D printing. Wow, this is truly peace technology. Can this turn on? I might have an old cord somewhere. See if this thing is able to play some music.